I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude for each and every one of you for showing up today, because you could have chosen to be anywhere else, but you chose to be here with us today. So thank you for choosing to be in community with us here at MLUC. I am Yvette McDonnell, the Congregational Life Coordinator here, and I am a UU aspirant on my way, a journey toward ministry. And I've shared this before, but this spiritual path that I'm on was chosen for me long before I leaned into it willingly. My truth and who I am always has been aligned with UU principles and values. And currently, the UU value that is resonating deeply with me right now is pluralism. And I've shared this before. My roots are in the Baptist tradition, and it serves as a rich foundation that deepens my understanding and my practice of African spirituality. And it invites me to embrace the diverse and many ways of knowing in the world. Pluralism within the UU space allows me and it encourages me to sink into the richness of the multiple religious and spiritual practices that come into my life. It helps me to lean into knowing the sacred from diverse cultures, from diverse experiences, diverse theologies. And it helps me to honor all of those spaces that are in between unseen and unspoken. And it was through the wisdom of a UU minister, Reverend Anthony Johnson, who was my advisor and my instructor for African spirituality at Star King School for the Ministry, that I first encountered this really beautiful concept that some of you may have heard me share before. It's a word called Yilbangura. Yilbangura. And Reverend Anthony was a student of Malidoma Somé of the Dagara people of Burkina Faso. And Somé shared the powerful understanding of Yilbangura. He said that in the culture of my people of the Dagara, we have no word for the supernatural. The closest we come is to this concept of Yilbangura, that it means the knowledge that can't be eaten. This profound understanding reveals the essence of certain aspects that thrive in things that we like to keep in categories, so to speak, here in the Western world. We like to put everything in little boxes and categories. But unlike Western thought, which often separates the spiritual from the material world and the sacred from the secular, for the Dagara people and many other indigenous cultures, the supernatural permeates our everyday existence. I'm going to say that again. The supernatural permeates our everyday existence. And it was then, only a few years ago, that I was so excited, I finally had a word. I finally had a way to articulate how I felt about the world and how I moved through the world. Simply knowing there was a word that I could use to explain something beyond pluralism. It was really transformative for me. And if you were ever to come to my house or look on my bookshelf here at work, you'll see many sacred texts. I have the Bible, I have the Quran, braiding sweet grass, women who run with wolves, and of water and of spirit. I see Yilbangura as the vessel that holds the interchangeable words of prayers, meditation, magic, miracles, and manifestations at the very heart of imagination. And I'm going to be very vulnerable here. As a child, believe it or not, I didn't have very much of an imagination. I didn't like to play house. I didn't like to play dolls. I didn't like to play with Barbies. I did, though, enjoy coloring, and I enjoyed dancing and writing poetry and doing creative things with my clothes and my hair. I expressed my creativity and imagination mostly through my clothes. And when I entered college, the pressures of societal expectations, those of my family, stifled my creative spirit. I became so consumed with the relentless pursuit of success. It overshadowed the joys of coloring and reading and dancing and simply exploring and understanding who I was. I was consumed with stress, and I started having panic attacks. I was not living into my light. I was not taking the time to explore who I was. I was merely doing what society expected of me, staying busy, going to school, going to work, did not leave much room for free thought. That pattern continued as I found myself burnt out in a PhD program. And excuse me, and it was there during one of my panic attacks that I remembered something that was buried so deep from my childhood. I wanted to be a dancer. So, at the end of my first year in the PhD program, I left and decided to become a professional, what is now, some of you may know, a belly dancer. Can you imagine that phone call back home? So I left, I moved to New York, took a job, and I became, it is funny, right? It is funny. And I said, I'm going to become a professional belly dancer and instructor, and I did. In the midst of that, I continued to take jobs to build my resume, but they were not soul supporting. I dipped in and out of my career in higher education with moments of fulfilling my creative side as a proprietor of a vintage clothing store that also sold home goods from around the world. Along the way, I became an herbalist. And then as I got older, I got more in tune with myself, and I really started to understand our education system. I started to understand the meaning of grind culture, consumerism, and stress, and what happens to people when they don't let their light shine and share their gifts with the world. Years ago, I came across a book called The Spirit of Intimacy of Ancient African Teachings of the Ways of Relationship by Sobonfu Somé, Maladoma's previous wife. And she writes that community is the spirit, the guiding light of the tribe, whereby people come together in order to fulfill a specific purpose, to help others fulfill their purpose. The goal of community is to make sure that each member of community is heard, is seen, and is properly giving the gifts that they have brought to this world. Without this giving and without this exchange, community dies. And without community, the individual is left without a place where they can contribute. The community is the grounding place where people can come and share their gifts and receive from others. See, I was so busy doing what society told me to do. I graduated from high school, I went off to college, I got the good job with good pay, good benefits, and a good title. But all those things left me feeling so incredibly empty. I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like there was this essence of who I was not matching what I was doing professionally. So Bonfu said, if you don't have people to affirm who you are and to support you in bringing forward your gifts, it disempowers the psyche. It can leave a blockage of sorts inside, which can affect us spiritually and mentally. And ultimately, we are left without a home to go to when we need to be seen. That was so powerful. When we don't share our gifts, when we don't share our talents for ourselves and for our communities and the world, we are left without a home to go to when we need to be seen. Now, here's a big question that I was asking myself during that time. Am I the only one out here who's feeling this way? And I would talk to my friends, and I realized that I wasn't the only one. And I'm curious to know, how many of you all have been out there in the world needing to be seen, needing to shine? This is where you tell me, yes, thank you. Remember, I come from the Baptist tradition, so we have this dialogue back and forth. So it's okay for you to be like, yes, yeah, me too, I haven't been seen, yeah, I feel you, okay. So, I didn't start to find real peace and space for myself and my imagination until I became a mother. Yeah. And before my daughter was born, I'm going to tell you the truth, I was really nervous about becoming a mother because I knew that my skills in pretend play were like zero. Okay. I had not exercised my muscles of imagination. I was too busy doing what society was telling me I should be doing. But despite that, I chose to be a stay-at-home parent, and I chose and had the privilege to homeschool my daughter. And despite struggling with pretend play, my arts and crafts game was on point. So I knew there was a little bit of hope for me, but in those quiet moments, I was so nervous that I was not going to be a good mom because I didn't like to play pretend. I didn't like to play with dolls. I didn't like to play with Barbies. I didn't know how to use my imagination. My daughter was and still is my biggest teacher. She ignited and sparked within me and reminded me of the power of creativity and wonder. On any given day, my couch was turned into a ship that would take us to the Galapagos Islands. It was the Galapagos Island Rescue Center, to be more specific. And I was a part of the Galapagos Rescue team. Let me tell you, this child had me on this couch ship. She had me jumping on the floor, which was water, swimming and answering distress calls of animals who needed to be rescued and sent back to the Galapagos Rescue Center. And we were battling all kinds of evils. Zach Backery, for example, was one. And we also had to make all kinds of medicine for the animals because they were sick. This took a lot of energy for me. And oftentimes I would pretend that my daughter's rough driving on the seas would make me very, very sleepy. This was my exit out of pretend play. But she caught on very quickly. And so there was no napping, because she was not having it. And this world happened all before lunchtime. So I was emotionally drained because I was not accustomed to using this muscle of imagination. But this thing is, over time and over the years, this playful engagement taught me to let go. Let go of expectations and embrace life filled with joy and imagination. Every moment that I spent in my daughter's imaginative world allowed me to reclaim my own liberation. Together, we found magic in the very simple things in life, like a tooth fairy who left semi-precious stones in exchange for teeth. The woods behind our home became a sanctuary of learning and connection, where I slowed down to the rhythm of the seasons, and I began to whisper my prayers on the wind, making offerings of my hair and singing to the pine trees as they gave me medicine. I took solace in the sound of the rain on the metal roof of my home, and it was a way that it helped me to meditate. It gave me a profound sense of peace. Now, I don't want to paint this perfect picture because life was anything but perfect. And the world was still being the world as it is today, and people were still doing people-y things. However, as the years passed, and with the combination of my daughter planting that seed of imagination within my spirit, and having the privilege and opportunity to live so close to nature, I was able to decolonize aspects of my life. My light began to shine brighter and brighter, and with that came more layers of liberation. And I was able to begin to conjure and manifest the things that I had been wanting for so long. So now, before I begin to tell you how I manifested these gifts, I want to take a moment and be vulnerable again and share a little glimpse of what I was dreaming. Because remember, I was dipping in and out of my career that was not fulfilling my soul. And so in those quiet moments, I was conjuring up and I was envisioning a path that was outside of academia, where I could embody being an educator and a mystical goddess, weaving together wisdom of nature and the magic of the universe. I dreamt of working harmoniously with herbs and nurturing the earth, growing food that nourished both my body and my soul, all while casting spells and healing that resonated throughout the world and the universe, touching lives and igniting a collective awakening of social justice. I imagined myself leading rituals that honor the cycles of life and the interconnectedness of all beings. I wanted to guide individuals and support their journeys toward becoming their best selves. I wanted to help people heal their trauma while sharing my voice through public speaking. Now, can you imagine looking for a job like that? I was actually like putting all these keywords very late at nighttime, usually around 2 o'clock in the morning, in Indeed. But nothing came up. But I didn't give up, because I grew up with a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. So this vision of a job that I was conjuring up, that I was manifesting, this vision job propelled me to intertwine my spiritual practices with practical skills of critical thinking. Because I knew that I had this gift, that I had this passion that I wanted to share with the world. So I started manifesting them little by little, similar to milkweeds that would blow off in the wind. It was like interweaving this colorful synapses of cosmic euphoria for me when I realized that I was actually the magic, that I was the living prayer, that I was the manifestation itself. I surrounded myself with people who wanted to straighten my crown instead of knock it down. I surrounded myself with people who cheered for me loudly when I couldn't cheer for myself. I surrounded myself with people who were like-minded and who were vibing on the same vibrational energies that were deeply rooted in liberation and decolonization of the binary. So I'm gonna let that sit there for a minute. That's a whole bunch to take in. I began to shine in my own community that truly saw me, that truly appreciated and supported me. And in return, I was able to share my gifts not only with myself, but with the entire community. The Dagara people understood the vital importance of letting your light shine. And a similar message is echoed in the Bible as well. Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16 says, "You are the light that cannot be hidden, like a city on a hilltop. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a light is placed on a stand, where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see." So just like this light over here in the chalice that is beaming, what are you dreaming about in your quiet moments? What are you thinking about? What are you envisioning for yourself? What gifts do you still have to give? And whatever it is, it's not too late, and you're not too old. I say that because I'm projecting, right? I'm projecting, because these were the thoughts that I had for myself. Oh, it's too late. You're too old to start a new career. What do you have left to lose? How can you shine your light and be your unapologetic self? I'd like to invite you to participate with a ritual. Tomorrow, Monday, is May 26th. The skies will be dark and the new moon will appear. Well, it won't appear, but it will be the new moon. And it's an opportunity to be still with the darkness and to plant seeds of your wildest dreams and imagination.